Welcome to Let's Listen, a video podcast in which we have conversations with IBMers about their own neurodiversity and their careers within IBM. I'm Andrew Williams, your host today, and we'll be listening to Brandon Puller, an senior automation consultant from Ballarat, Australia, who joined IBM in 2019. Welcome. Maybe you could just kick us off today and tell us a little bit about you as a person and an IBMer.
Sure, it's great to be here, Andrew. Thank you very much for inviting me along. So I'm someone who has a passion for learning new things, and I'm always trying something new, which is just a more lengthy way of saying that I get bored very quickly. And because of that, I really struggled with time-gated education. I actually dropped out of high school. I wanted to study medicine, and I was able to pass mock exams up to the third year of medicine. But I was told that I'd have to wait 6 years before being able to prove that. Educators told me to just relax, but that just ended up making me angry. Even at 15, I was aware of how much time I would realistically have to do something with my life. And asking me to waste 1/10 of my realistically available and usable time was just unacceptable to me. So that's sort of what ended me up into getting into the neurodiversity program, because I was effectively considered unhireable. I didn't have any qualifications or skills because I dropped out. But during the program, I was able to prove that despite not having those official pieces of paper, I was still able to perform the roles as effectively as anyone else. Some of my hobbies as a person, I love to game. I'm a gamer. I do machining, so lathe and milling machine metalwork. I love electronics. I do lots of doodles on Arduino and ESP32s, and I like to just randomly develop applications for just about anything. If I can make a desktop application to make some little frustration go away, that's what I do. I also like to complain about things I've heard.
So, Brandon, how has your career progressed in IBM since you were first hired?
I've learnt a lot more than I thought that I was capable of learning in 3 years. Uh, the access to the Your Learning platform and the other provided learning resources has been amazing. In 3 years, I've managed something like 600 plus hours of logged Your Learning hours, while also maintaining a billable utilization of about over 80% for each year, which means I don't have a lot of free time. But because of that, I've actually been promoted each cycle, which has really helped with my self-esteem, which is something that I actually always struggled with.
Mm.
Having that affirmation that I've, as you said yourself during our little preparation, that I've been promoted quicker than you were. I've been promoted quicker than a lot of people within IBM, and that's just it's made me feel valuable, because before that, I legitimately had the opinion that I was worthless, that I had no place in society, that I was just going to be some sort of drain on society for my life. And then out of nowhere, this program came up and I successfully got in. And ever since then, it's just been nothing but constant affirmation that I have value, that there is something that is important about me, that I can do things, I can help people.
Great, Brandon. So tell us, and I'm going to put this in quotes, what's exciting about an average day at IBM for you?
Well, that's the thing. As much as the corporate world likes to pretend that every second of every day needs to be exciting, or that you
Mm.
need to be actively grateful for every opportunity you get within a company, the reality is that not every day is going to be enthralling. There's plenty of monotony, frustration, but I suppose what excites me most is that since I'm in automation and AI, I have the opportunity, the skills, and the ability to reduce that monotony for others. If I find a process frustrating or boring, and I find myself like it's really difficult to motivate myself to do that thing, I see it as a perfect candidate for automating and automation, especially if it's something that has to be done frequently. So I just really love to make everyone's day today, if not more enjoyable, just a little bit more tolerable by removing all those little annoyances that pile up over time, like submitting your timesheet and and getting your hours plan in, and having to update your CV, like being able to automate those things and making someone, even if it's just one person, I prefer it to be as many people as possible, but even if it's just one person, making their day even slightly more positive makes everything worth it. It makes what I do worthwhile.
So how has your neurodiversity impacted or benefited your experience at IBM over the last couple of years?
My tendency to become obsessively absorbed in whatever project I'm on has been a massive driver of success for me. If the client is willing to give me full access to the documentation for a project, I'm able to read through it and obtain a very thorough understanding of that project in a very, very short time frame. The more they give me, the better I'm able to perform. And this isn't just business documentation. So business documentation and source code, because I'm able to look through the code, understand it, look through the commenting, and it can help me understand where the project is at. Because a lot of times the business understanding and the technical understanding of a project can be very different from each other. So the business thinks that a project is at X place and that it's being set up to do whatever, while the technical aspect of it is in a very different direction. Even though it produces the correct results, the business may not understand how those results were achieved, and it may not align with what they were thinking. And that sort of that can cause a lot of tension, and projects can go a bit offline because of that. And being something that I've been very good at is bringing projects back on track by being able to be the bridge between those two areas. I suppose an impact my neurodiversity has caused is would be my very scattershot approach to problem solving. I don't restrict myself to quote unquote being on task, because so many of my solutions have come from allowing my ADHD to just distract me with new ideas and just trying something new until something that has a positive effect is achieved. So just effectively throwing darts at the dartboard of my mind and waiting for something to sort of stick that can help with whatever's going on. And it's very difficult to explain that process because it is so scattershot. And that's what makes it difficult with clients at times, because I can't necessarily explain what I'm doing because I don't know yet up until the point that I go, okay, this worked. And then I'm able to create the documentation and help communicate that understanding and how things have come to where they are. But until I've found that, it can be a bit touch and go.
So perhaps you could close off by sharing a day-to-day challenge that you experience as a neurodivergent within IBM.
Sure. I really struggle with structured hours. If I'm forced into the 9 to 5 for some, and this has been true for every occupation I've had, I tend to fall apart. I don't know why. It may be due to I have a very unorthodox sleeping pattern. I am awake for 40 to 50 hours, followed by 12 to 16 hours of sleep. So daily stand-ups and constant monitoring by management can really become a heavy degrader of my mental health as time progresses. I've been very fortunate that most of my clients accept this and have been supportive of how productive I can be, and I can prove that productivity despite that little quirk of mine. But having to prove that to each client as I move on to different projects can create a lot of tension in the beginning, because they don't, especially if they're they have a very traditional mindset. Getting them to understand that how they're like being able to produce those results does require a bit of what's the right word, accommodations made to those hours. So sometimes I won't be able, like even today. So for example, I'm going to be honest here. I legitimately did not get out of bed until midday today because I had just delivered on a very, very short turnaround client application that they needed made. I did it within 3 days, but that's because I was able to work for those 3 days straight without any sort of stopping. And I was able to pump that result out. And because of being able to do that, the client is very, very supportive of me disappearing sometimes for a couple of days in the middle of the week, because that's just how my sleep cycle works.
Well, this has been fascinating, but unfortunately, that brings us to an end of this Let's Listen podcast. I'd really like to thank you, Brandon, for your time. It's always great to catch up. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to post below. Otherwise, you can find out more information about neurodiversity at IBM at ibm.biz/Let's Listen.
And thank you very much for inviting me, Andrew.
Oh, that's fine, Brandon.
I didn't mean to catch up.
Yeah. All right. So as always, thanks for listening to us today at IBM.
All right, catch you around.